You see them everywhere, right? The private security guard at the mall, the police officer on the corner. They've both got uniforms, they're both there for security. But believe me, their roles, and especially their powers, are worlds apart. So when things really go sideways, who's actually in charge? Let's get into it. Okay, picture this. A security guard grabs a suspected shoplifter. A few minutes later, police cars roll up. In that moment, who holds the real legal power? You might be surprised. The answer is way more complicated than it looks, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack right now. So, to really get a handle on their powers, you first have to understand their purpose. I mean, they might look kind of similar, but a private security guard and a public law enforcement officer are on two completely different missions. And this right here, this slide gets to the absolute heart of it. Private security is all about prevention. Their number one job is to protect their clients' assets. That means the property, the people, the information. Law enforcement, on the other hand, is all about apprehension. Their job is to enforce public laws and to show up after a law has been broken. So one is proactive for a private client, the other is reactive on behalf of the public. Now, this is where that difference in mission really starts to matter. A security guard's powers are basically the same as any one of us, a private citizen. Their authority is strictly limited to their client's property, and it comes from the property owner. A police officer, though? Totally different story. They have powers granted by law, jurisdiction over an entire city or state, and their authority comes straight from the government. This one distinction is the key to, well, pretty much everything else. So, with these two separate worlds, how in the world do they manage to work together? Well, here's the thing. A successful team-up doesn't start with a frantic 911 call. Nope. It starts way, way before any crisis happens, through some really smart, proactive relationship building. And here's how the smart security teams actually do it. How they build that bridge. They join these public-private partnerships just to get to know each other. They'll invite the local fire department and EMTs for a full tour of the facility, so the first responders already know the layout before there's an emergency. And they set up what are called mutual aid agreements, which basically means they figure out ahead of time who's going to do what, like sharing security footage or deciding where to set up a command post when it all hits the fan. But what happens when that crisis actually hits? The alarm is blaring, things are happening fast. This is where those legal lines we just talked about become absolutely critical. How do their powers actually function side by side in the heat of the moment? This chart really lays out the massive difference in what they can do. A guard can only make a citizen's arrest, which means they can detain someone they personally saw commit a crime, but it's legally tricky and super limited. A police officer has statutory arrest power, based on probable cause. When it comes to a search, a guard needs your permission, or it has to be a condition of being there, like a bag check at a stadium. A cop is bound by the Fourth Amendment. They need a warrant or probable cause. But the biggest difference, that comes down to interrogation. And here's the kicker, the really crucial takeaway. Because a private security guard isn't a government agent, they aren't bound by the Constitution in the same way a police officer is. What does that mean? It means when they question a suspect, they generally do not have to read them their Miranda Rights, and any confession they get, it could be totally admissible in court. But, and this is a huge but, there is a massive exception to this rule. A single moment where everything flips and that guard suddenly has the exact same constitutional rules to follow as a cop. And that happens when they become an agent of the police. The fancy legal term for this is a state actor. So if a police officer gets to the scene and tells the security guard, hey, go ask that guy where he stashed the weapon, boom, that guard is now acting as an agent of the state. In that exact instant, all the constitutional rules, including Miranda Rights, kick in. It's a super fine line, but it's the line that can decide whether a confession gets thrown out of court. All right, the immediate danger is over. The suspects are cuffed, but the battle for control, it's just getting started. Because now, a whole new challenge shows up, the media. News vans are pulling up, reporters are everywhere, and the chaos just takes on a new form. So who controls the story now? In a media frenzy like this, there is one and only one rule that matters for a professional security operation. It's called the one voice policy. That means all communication goes through a single, designated spokesperson, period. No exceptions. The security guard's job here is not to talk, it's to act. Their role is to lock down the perimeter, herd the media into a designated staging area, and shield victims and employees from cameras. If a reporter shoves a mic in their face, the only right answer is to point them to the official spokesperson.
The job is to control the scene, not the story.
And hey, quick pro tip, never ever say no comment. It just makes you sound guilty. The professional approved response is something like this. We are currently assessing the situation and will provide a statement shortly. It buys you time, it sounds controlled, and it doesn't give anything away.
So why do we even need to know about this complicated dance between private guards and public police? Because this isn't just for security geeks. This is about the fundamental line between private protection and public power, and it impacts our rights, our safety, and even the outcome of real court cases every single day.
Okay, so let's boil this all down. What are the big things to remember? First, private security is about prevention on private property. Police are about apprehension out in the public domain. Their powers are completely different, and so are their legal limits. And finally, the best way to handle a crisis is to plan for it together long before it ever happens. So, the next time you're out and about and you see someone in uniform, take a second look. Now you can ask yourself, are they here to protect private assets or to enforce public law? Because the answer to that question can determine your rights in that very moment. And now you know the difference.